Hi, my name's Ed Shanshala. I'm the CEO of Ammonoosuc Community Health Services. At ACHS, we realize you do not need to be a French bistro chef to prep and serve meals that you feel good about. That's why our Food is Medicine program is designed that from 30 minutes prep to plate, you too can serve nutritious meals.
My name's Mina, and I'm the teaching kitchen instructor for Ammonoosuc Community Health Services Food is Medicine program. I was a teacher for 20 years before this, and one of the biggest focuses in my classroom was that food doesn't have to have morality. Food is really not about good and bad, it's about nutrient dense and non-nutrient dense. And here at Ammonoosuc Community Health Services, that's our focus with this program. We want to help you get your food prepped to plate in 30 minutes or less. So we're going to make some Cowboy Caviar. Cowboy Caviar is really just a term for mixing a bunch of beans and chopped vegetables into a bowl and eating it with a chip. That's really all that it is. The formula that we're using today focuses quite a bit on legumes, actually. We've got black beans, black-eyed peas, and then we've got some corn. We're gonna have chopped bell pepper and some onions. But you can really customize this to suit your needs. So the first thing that's gonna go into our bowl is I've got some pre-chopped red onion, 1/2 cup. So that's in. Next, we're going to talk about how we're going to deal with our canned goods. So I've got a couple cans that are prepped and ready. So we've got this can of black beans. There's a ton of starchy liquid in here, and sometimes starchy liquid is good for what you're doing. This is not an instance where that's good. So we're actually going to rinse these. So I'm going to pour them into the strainer. So empty out the can, turn on your water. Doesn't really matter if it's cold water or not. In this instance here, we're using cold water. And you'll see bubbles and stuff that will come up on your black beans. That's okay. That's just the starches. All right. Shake it around a little bit. It was a big can, so you might need to rinse it a couple times. Perfect. All right. So we are going to add our black beans. Now we're going to put our strainer back in because we're going to do the same thing with our corn. Corn's not as bad. You don't really have to rinse that a whole lot. Good. And now we've got one more can that needs to be opened. This is our black-eyed peas. These can be a little tricky to find in canned form, so if you want to do them from a dry state, you certainly can. You can do that with any of these things. You can also use fresh corn. That's totally fine too. We're just using canned because sometimes that's what we have. So we're just going to wipe off this can, make sure it's nice and clean on the top, and we're going to open it up using our can opener. So just clip the edge and twist. Black-eyed peas are something that are a little unique, I feel like. They don't quite taste like a bean. They're somewhere in between. They're just something kind of unique. So safe method for opening up your can. Luckily, this is already kind of up, but you never want to stick your finger inside there. So I always use the end of something to pop it open. And we're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to drain it and rinse. And you'll see the same bubbling on the black-eyed peas because they've got that starchy water. Nothing wrong with that. Good. Okay, black-eyed peas into the bowl. So at this point, we've just got a nice mixture of our beans and our corn, and our onions are buried down in there. At this point, we've got this red pepper that I've already washed. We're going to go ahead and chop it up. So I'm just going to take the top off, and then I'm going to pull out all this stuff on the inside. Because we don't need the seeds, we don't need the membranes or anything like that. So that way our pepper's all clean on the inside. And we'll toss the stem, but we can still save this top portion. So for dicing, we're just going to keep the tip of our knife down. And we're going to chop everything into strips. And then we're going to rotate it, and we'll chop it the other way. And our goal is to try and get everything to be the same size, because remember, we're scooping this with a chip. So we don't want to have any huge pieces in there. We want everything to be relatively uniform. So that's a pretty good start there. We're going to put those into the bowl. This recipe does not have any dairy in it, but a little bit of feta cheese crumbled into your Cowboy Caviar is delicious. It's a great cheese because it kind of holds up well in there. It crumbles nicely. So we're going to slice this into thin strips, turn it, and always remember to kind of keep your hand curled up like this. Don't forget about your thumb. Keep your thumb out of there. Always want to start with all the fingers that you went into a cooking experience with. Or finish with all the fingers, not start. Finish with all the fingers you started with. That's what we want to do. All right, so here is our last part of the pepper. It's great. And our last chop. All right. And if there's any pieces that didn't quite make it through in the dicing process, just chop them up at the end, no worries. You can also add another pepper at this point. If you're feeling like it needs to have more pepper, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with customizing. All right, so we're gonna just take all this and stir it up. Then we're gonna add our garlic. We're gonna use a granulated garlic, but you could absolutely use fresh if that was your preference. All right, perfect. This is all set. Now this calls for 3 cloves of garlic, which if we were chopping it, it probably would equate to about a tablespoon. I'm just gonna measure with my heart. I'm gonna kind of sprinkle it around in here. I love garlic, so I don't mind putting extra in. But if you're sensitive to garlic, just keep that in mind. And there's nothing wrong with tasting it at this point and seeing if you like what's happening. I think sometimes people are afraid to taste as they're cooking, but how else are you supposed to know if you like it or not? Nothing wrong with taking a little bite. As long as you're just cooking it for you and your family, nothing wrong with that. All right, this is great. So this is ready. At this point, we need to construct our dressing. So we are going to take a glass measuring cup and we are going to add to it a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Just going to look here on my jar. I'm actually going to use a measuring cup because I don't have a 1/4 cup marked. So there's our olive oil. And to that, we're going to add 1/3 cup of vinegar. I'm using white wine vinegar. You can use red wine, you can use apple cider, whatever works for you. Even balsamic. I mean, it would definitely be more overpowering, I think, but some people really like that flavor. So this is 1/3 cup of white wine vinegar into the olive oil. And to that, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of, we're going with fresh lime juice. If you have the refrigerated little bottle, that's fine too. Nothing wrong with that. If your lime is kind of stiff, you probably want to give it a little roll first. So when you roll it like this, it helps release the juices inside. So even if this lime feels nice and juicy, I like to do it regardless because it just really helps release what's in there. Now this is calling for 2 tablespoons. I'm just going to squeeze the whole contents of the lime into it because I think that'll be pretty close. If there were seeds in this, I would squeeze it into my hand so that way I would catch any of the seeds and I wouldn't have to go fishing afterward. But this has no seeds, so I'm just going to squeeze directly right into it. There are tools that you can buy to squeeze. So like if you have mobility issues with your hands and this is hard for you, there are things where like you can clamp it down and it will get the juice out, or you could use like a juicer where you twist it as well. Luckily, limes don't take a whole lot of strength to crush, but they certainly can pose some problems. All right, so we've got our limes all set. And to that, we are going to add 1½ teaspoons of honey, and that's going to give it a little bit of sweetness. So there is 1. The trick is, can we get the honey off the spoon easily? Stir it around in there for a second. And we'll do 1 more. So that's just 1/2. All right. There we go. Honey is so sticky. All right, so we've got our honey added. Now we're just gonna add some salt. We're gonna skip the pepper. The onion that we have in there, for myself personally, that's more than enough pepper. If you like more spice, certainly add some pepper to it. And there's nothing wrong with adding other herbs or spices. It's really whatever you enjoy and like best. I'm just going to use a fork to whisk this all together. This is called emulsification. When you take the acid and the fat and you mix it together like this and whisk it, they become one continuous fluid. All right, that's looking good. We're going to pour that over our Cowboy Caviar. Give it a good stir. It smells delicious. This looks perfect. So there we go. This is the perfect thing, like if you get invited to a party or like a potluck, you don't know what to bring, it's great because you basically can just walk down the canned aisle, pick a bunch of beans and mix it up with some dressing and you can't go wrong. People are gonna love it. So it's best eaten with a nice sturdy chip. So you scoop it and then you got a delicious, flavorful bite.